1. Lincoln, Nebraska, 1961. The boy stared in wonderment at the ancient reliquary. The jasper and turquoise nodules lit a fire in the boy's eyes and heart as his small fingers nervously traced the raised silver script that surrounded the relic. The boy's great-grandfather, Samuel Turpin, was celebrating his 85th birthday. All of the old man's relatives had turned out for cake, mince, coffee, and mint-flavored punch. The boy cared little for the banter of aunts and uncles, or even cousins. He had come to his great-grandfather's house to hold the holy relic of the Turpin family. His reasons to visit had been like that for a few years now, ever since his great-grandfather had uncovered the Turpin treasure for the boy that first time, a hot and humid July evening of thunderstorms and shrilling cicadas. The boy's mind wandered as he imagined the ancient mountains and rivers that carriers of this treasure had plied, only to deposit the relic into the good graces of the Turpin family. The relic exuded wonder and mystery. For the boy, it was truly a great treasure. The Turpins had always been poor. Poor had its own aroma, and the smell of poverty hung all about them. Yet within the Turpin household, impeccable hygiene and personal pride sat as a monument amid the desperate neighborhood. Turpins may be poor, but they know how to bathe and present themselves, was the axiom handed down from generation to generation. Samuel Turpin had retreated from Ireland to New York near the turn of the century. He found little spiritual purchase in the streets and boroughs of the great city of the East. Samuel, his new wife in tow, had taken a train west, a one-way passage to Spokane, Washington. When he saw the fertile soil of the high plains of Nebraska, he cut short the journey and settled among the North-Bottom German-Russians who had recently abandoned the ground of Norka, Russia, for the farmland surrounding Lincoln, Nebraska. Samuel, too poor to buy ground or build, rented a small white house that pleased him. He found hard and honest work dismantling boxcars at the Havelock shops of the Burlington Railroad yard. Each day Samuel, black from creosote, tar, and grease, came home to his dinner and the treasure of the Turpin line. His wife shook her head in exasperation each evening as Turpin took a bit of whiskey and a bowl of pipe tobacco and contemplated the strange, gem-encrusted box. For an hour or longer, Turpin would stare at the treasure of the Turpins before turning in, only to start again at 6 a.m, wielding a 10-pound pry bar in the stifling confines of a boxcar. The treasure had come with a skin and parchment diary written in the Old Irish of the 17th century. The last entry had been made in the fall of 1607 by Samuel's namesake. For hundreds of years the Turpins had passed the treasure down to the senior male of each generation. Despite ignorance of the true nature of their treasure, the generations of Turpins had infused the antiquity with something that went much beyond an heirloom. The relic had become a talisman for the family. Over the centuries, for reasons they could never articulate, the sanctity of the treasure took precedence, even over putting bread into the mouths of their children. During desperate times, though tempted to sell the relic in order to eat, the Turpin line remained resolute in maintaining possession of their treasure. Now the boy, eyes wide, worried the reliquary with curious fingers. The old man, tired of the attention of relatives and well-wishers, hobbled into the room and silently watched the boy and the Turpin treasure. "Gae, boyo, it's only a thing. Do you not see it as so?" asked Samuel Turpin. "No, great-grandpa, it's not only a thing, it's a treasure. You have a treasure here." "And how can you be so certain, boyo?" "Because it's older than anything I've ever seen." Samuel grasped the precious box and shifted it to rest on a lip of an end table in the simple room. Many years ago his wife had died and left Samuel to his own bidding within the small household. "By we may be poor, but we have this, and we will always have this," Turpin said in a soft, proud voice. The noise of the crowd was muffled now by cake and coffee. The old Irishman continued, "This is our treasure, that which sets us apart from all the others, money or no. No one has the likes of this, no one." Gabe continued to trace his small fingers across the silver filigree of script against the gem-encrusted copper container. "Great-Grandpa, will we ever need to give this back? Where did we get it? How come we have it?" "We have it because God wants us to have it, boyo," said the old man. "Just remember, when the screw of poverty puts pressure on you and yours, this is above all that we have as Turpins. It is what makes us different. When we were on the boat from County Cork to New York, no one held a package as precious as this. When your great-grandmother and I boarded the train in New York to come out west, no others had such a package. When I die, and you have this treasure, no one else in the world will have such a treasure. This is the only valuable thing we, as Turpins, have to pass on. You like it, yes?" queried Turpin gently. Gabe had hardly heard the words of his great-grandfather as he wrestled the heavy box into his possession. Awkwardly, Gabe turned it over and over again as he studied every inch. He fingered the cask's opener, and Samuel, who had seemed to doze off, came alert. He offered a quick and final proclamation. "Never open the box, as long as I am alive. Once I am dead and buried in the ground, you may open the box. Until then, you are forbidden to examine its contents." Gabe had for some years dreamed of having a true archaeological artifact, a real treasure of history, but the poverty of his North Lincoln neighborhood seemed inescapable. He had begun to steel himself that it would always remain a dream. Gabe had tried to satisfy himself with flint scrapers and points he found in the huge gravel piles of the ready-mix concrete company behind his grandpa's house. He had proudly displayed them in Riker mounts over his bed. On that July night, however, all of his hard-earned Paleolithic artifacts paled beside the burnished and ancient wonder of the Turpin treasure. In the glow of the relic, something moved in Gabe's spirit. A gushing joy was in the heart of the boy. Gabe was irretrievably changed in that moment, as the relic fulfilled his boyhood dreams completely. For years, the treasure of the Turpins provided the old man and his great-grandson inspiration and wonder. Gabe grew into adolescence, but despite his raging hormones and newfound fascination with females, the treasure still inspired him. Gabe's Friday evening visits to his great-grandfather and the relic became a ritual. In the shadows of the simple front room, they would cast theories and spin tales of the treasure's journey from the east to the west. Staring into the dark, Samuel would sip his whiskey and puff on his pipe. As the years went by, he began to focus more on the young man than the relic. Samuel knew of Gabe's ever-growing interest in archaeology and anthropology. Clearly, the lad had formed a covenant with the treasure. Over the years, the relic had evolved into much more than a thing for Gabe. It beckoned him, in an almost spiritual manner, toward a great unknown, and, at the same time, sparked a keen interest, a love for old histories and mysteries. The relic grew into something much larger than the measure and meaning of a man. It whispered of a great mystery. On one of their Friday nights, the old man offered his theory on the relic's origin. "The diary mentions Japan and Osaka and a holy mountain. I reckon that is where the treasure was made. Probably some ceremonial artifact from one of them Shinto shrines." Gabe left his grandfather thunderstruck when he disagreed. No, Great-Grandpa. The silver script is not Japanese. It's Sanskrit, not kanji. Sanskrit was used in India and Tibet. No, the treasure may have been in Japan in 1607, but it was made in India. I got a book on ancient languages from the library, and the examples of Sanskrit in the book are a lot like the script on our treasure. Well, be boyo, exclaimed the old man, a smile of approval creeping over his lined face. Didn't know I had such a brain on the payroll. I wish we could open it and see what's inside, Gabe gently offered. Maybe there are clues we could find if we were to open it. Abruptly, Samuel Turpin's demeanor changed. His voice assumed an edge. We will not be opening the box, Gabe. All the clues you need can be found on the outside of the treasure. Is that clear? Yes, Great-Grandpa. I just forgot. Sorry. Gabe's eyes sought the floor in his embarrassment at the rebuke. Clearly agitated, Samuel Turpin poured another finger of whiskey and fired up his pipe. In that brief moment, Gabe saw the unguarded look of fear on the old man's face. A wisp of pipe smoke wrapped around Samuel's face, further obscuring it in the shadows. Gabe grew older, graduated from the University of Nebraska, and went on to graduate school in Minnesota. He studied cultural anthropology. His Friday sessions with his great-grandpa had continued throughout high school and even into college. However, as a bitter rite of passage, Gabe moved away from Lincoln, his great-grandfather, and the relic. While he sat in the lecture halls of the frozen university, he often thought of the Turpin treasure. Even with a substantial research library at his disposal, Gabe could not solve its mystery. The relic was still safely in Great-Grandpa's front room, and Gabe and his references were hundreds of miles north. He didn't get back to Nebraska often, and the few times he had been back, Great-Grandpa reported feeling poorly and being bad company. Gabe had not seen his great-grandfather for almost 2 years. In his third year of graduate school, Gabe signed on to a field expedition to the Galana River in Kenya. He was excited about the prospect of working with the famous Louis Leakey. He scheduled a week back in Lincoln to clean up personal details before his 6-month expedition. Gabe's father told him Samuel was in the hospital after falling and breaking his hip on the way to visit his 85-year-old girlfriend. At 97 years old, the old man was seriously injured. Gabe canceled everything and went to visit his great-grandpa. Gabe found the old man sleeping amid a tangle of tubes and wires, his gnarled and calloused hand wrapped around a plastic cup with a finger of whiskey in it. His toothless mouth gaped, and from it issued soft snores. "Great-Grandpa," whispered Gabe, trying to gently wake the old man. Samuel Turpin's eyes shuddered open and closed a few times as they tried to focus in the bright white light of the hospital room. He smiled at Gabe and quickly reached for his false teeth. He touched Gabe gently on the arm. Then the old man mustered an irritated look and complained to Gabe that the silly nurses would not let him smoke his pipe. A broad grin claimed the old man's face suddenly, as he said, "But they let me have all the whiskey I want. Go figure. I guess I'm allowed only one vice, not counting my lusting after that cute blonde nurse." Gabe and Samuel laughed heartily and talked into the afternoon. Their conversation slowly spiraled to the topic of the Turpin treasure. "I miss looking at the treasure more than I miss my pipe," claimed Samuel. "I'm anxious to get home." "Where are you off to, boyo? Africa?" Gabe gave a thorough briefing on his upcoming expedition. The old man paid rapt attention to his great-grandson and smiled with obvious pride. "This one will escape to the wild places of the earth," thought Samuel. The old man was getting tired in the early dusk and suppressing deep yawns. Gabe spent an awkward moment offering a handshake. The old Irishman brushed aside the tubes and wires. He hugged Gabe close and gave him an Irish kiss on the cheek. "Take care of yourself, boyo. The treasure and I will be here, waiting for you, "When you get back," said the old man in a strong voice. Gabe squatted beside the campfire as the sun set in pools of blood-red clouds over the Galana River. He gently placed the letter into the fire. Tree hyraxes cried in the night. Tears streamed down his face. Weeks after being sent, the letter from his father had come to the Leakey research station and was trucked out to the field camp. His great-grandfather had never left the hospital alive. Samuel Turpin died of pneumonia 3 days after Gabe had left for Africa. Great-grandpa's 97 years seemed like a blessedly long life to most. For Gabe, it was bitterly short. The fire crackled, and the letter curled and blackened, spiraling smoke into the African sky. Gabe, alone, probed the fire with a green stick and reflected. His great-grandfather had been unique, so different from anyone else Gabe had ever known. He recalled the words spoken so many years ago. "This is our treasure, that which sets us apart from all of the others." The treasure was that which had made Great-Grandpa different. And now, most certainly, the treasure has done the same to me. Hippos grunted in the dark, and zebra barked against the moans of hyena. A large orange moon rose over the water of the Galana, and the world resumed its ancient dance of life and death.